Hello and welcome to my dungeon. There is one piece of equipment from one of my first characters that I still remember fondly. It was a pair of daggers, short sword almost, that he had fashioned from the teeth of a saber-toothed tiger, demonic saber-toothed tiger that had almost mauled him to death with those teeth in the battle before. From the whole of Baldur's Gate 2, I still remember one weapon in particular, the Flail of the Ages. You had to assemble that flail from its three separate heads, and if you combined all of them at Forge, you got the real Flail of the Ages plus 3 that would do fire, cold and acid damage. There's something about crafting these weapons yourself rather than just finding them or buying them that makes them personal. And there's one video game franchise that takes this concept to an extreme, and that is Monster Hunter. The basic gameplay loop of Monster Hunter can be summarized by: go into the world, track monster, fight monster, take it apart and return to your base to make more powerful weapons and armor from the parts of the monster. Then you can go out and fight more powerful monsters to make ever more powerful equipment. This gameplay loop is similar to D&D and its dungeon delving, leveling up and deeper dungeon delving. It's evident that we can take inspiration from it and use this concept to enrich our own game. An easy way to implement this concept would be to encourage players to have equipment made especially for their characters. That should not take a lot of encouragement. Players love this kind of stuff. So all you need to do is present them with an opportunity. Maybe you have a prominent craftsman in town that is specialized in that kind of work. Perhaps the Adventurers Guild has a workshop of its own, where members can craft items when they are not out adventuring. That way, you introduce the idea, and the players know where to go to have their stuff made or make it themselves. Another way is to give the players some items during the adventures that need some crafting before they can be used, or at least used to their full potential. Examples of this would be the 3 pieces of the Flail of the Ages, or the hilt and the blade of the Star Razor. One step further would be to give the characters just special materials, and then they can make whatever equipment they need from those special materials. Maybe give them a piece of meteor iron, of mithril. From there, it's only one dragon slaying away to make armor from dragon scales and weapons from their teeth and potions from the monster's blood. Players of rangers and similar wilderness characters usually come up with this idea on their own. From there on, you only have to keep an open mind about the players' ideas. They will start looking for this stuff. I'm sure you could make hard rules for everything, have a list of every material you can harvest from a monster or find somewhere in the world, and what items you could make from it. But I think that is overkill. It's enough to keep the possibility in mind when preparing an adventure and to be open to your players' ideas during the game. There are a few rules of thumb you can follow though. The type of material the players can find should reflect the environment they are adventuring in. Rare types of wood in a forest, poisonous plants in a swamp, precious ores on a mountain, and magic crystals in a magic crystal wasteland. You can also always introduce wildcards. Meteor, for example, can have struck anywhere and introduce a special kind of material into every environment. It could even become a story hook. Maybe the group needs to race to the crash site to be the first to gather that special material. Or perhaps the meteor is affecting and corrupting the environment, turning plants and animals into monsters, and it needs to be contained. I bet you could make some special equipment out of those corrupted plants and animals. For materials you get from monsters, you can follow a similar approach. If a monster has a high armor class because of tough skin or natural armor, you can probably use it to make armor and shields from. If a monster is poisonous, you can most likely make poisons from it. If a monster has sharp teeth or large claws, you should be able to fashion them into weapons. And if a monster has supernatural abilities, like the Displacer Beast, perhaps it's possible to craft a magic item from their remains that inherits this ability. The power of all of these items should reflect the power of the beast they are made from. Armor made from an old dragon should grant higher AC than armor made from a young dragon, for example. The lowest class of material will only yield you standard equipment. Or actually, maybe even worse than standard equipment. If you substitute steel with bone, for example, because you just don't have any steel, those bone weapons will break on you sooner than later. Dark Sun players will know what I'm talking about. The soul-crafted items also don't have to be a straight power-up. Rather than give +1 to AC, maybe armor made from the scales of a white dragon only grant you resistance to cold damage. These more situational bonuses make it easier to keep the overall power level in check. They also give your group the opportunity to use equipment for special circumstances. You're about to go into a poisonous swamp? Equip your basilisk boots of poison resistance. You're planning to fight a fire elemental? Your spear tipped with the tooth of a frost worm might serve you well in that fight. You can use this as part of your adventure. Once the characters know what threat they're ultimately facing in your adventure, they'll want to search, hunt, and craft the special equipment they need to fight that threat effectively. That's actually how we played the Dragon of Icespire Peak. We got ourselves a dragon slaying sword and a balm of ice resistance before fighting the white dragon. Another aspect that I think is often overlooked in RPG design is that many monsters can probably be cooked and eaten. So ask yourself, what would a monster taste like? Would it be good fried or stewed? Or maybe eating certain parts from a monster even gives you a bonus for a few hours, like a sort of potion. Consuming soup made from the eyes of a beholder might grant you magic resistance, for example. These kind of temporary buffs are great, since you don't have to worry about them becoming overpowered in the long run. Keep that in mind for equipment as well. You can be way more generous with handing out special and magical items if they have limited charges, spoil over time, or have a chance to break when using them. Anyway, these are my thoughts on the topic. Do you have a favorite piece of equipment that you fashioned from a monster? Or do you even have a favorite set of rules for this concept? Let me know in the comments. For now, thank you for watching. I bid thee farewell until we shall meet again.